How's it, Shirley? We've been having a little chat about different seasons in life and how that makes our homeschooling morph and the flexibility that an eclectic home education system gives, whether for a season you might need to work from home or go work full time, or a child wants to kind of branch out into their own interests. So you need to give space to them to do that, or you've just had a newborn. And there's so many ways that an eclectic homeschooling model can work through these various seasons. So I thought for those that are not or new to homeschooling and new to the understanding of what an eclectic will need to be invited into an eclectic model, why don't you give a quick overview of what it is when we say eclectic so people understand the context of the word?
Yeah, so eclectic is drawing from a variety of sources. So instead of buying one homeschool curriculum package that gives you a textbook or an online lesson for every single subject, you as the parent piece together a program for maths from one supplier and maybe an English program or a language program from a different supplier. You choose something else for science, you choose something else for history and social studies. And so it's a mix and match approach. And as you said, flexibility is probably the big advantage that it gives us, not in terms of only having the freedom to be flexible and choose from different suppliers, but also it makes it flexible for your budget. So you can buy one thing at a time, month by month, as it suits your budget, and you don't have to break the bank all in one go. So, it's got a number of different advantages. But I think what for me is the best thing is that I can choose programs that are written by somebody who's an expert in that subject and has got a love and a passion for teaching that subject. And it's made a program that's made especially for homeschooling compared to a school textbook, just gives you a totally different experience and makes it more engaging for you as the mother and also for the children. So I think that's how we bring experts into our homes instead of just a boring panel who had to write a textbook for a school system. And it makes learning come alive, honestly.
Examples of that are, we've used maths programs written by a homeschooling dad who was a high school maths teacher, which he understood the specifics of what a mom who, like me, is terrible at maths but needs to have more of a safety net behind them. And then another homeschooling mom who was in the science field before and wrote a beautiful science program for homeschoolers. And then obviously you bringing in your linguistic skill into footprints and me, my geography background. And even in footprints, we've got our language program is written by a remedial language teacher who homeschooled her 3 daughters. So it does give you that specific edge, knowing that these people are not only experts, but they've also walked a mile in your shoes. They understand the specific needs of your homeschooling environment. So if we say that eclectic home education is suitable in all seasons, are there any seasons in your life that you can think of where you really relied on that methodology so that you could continue to homeschool?
Gosh, I think every season in some way.
Yeah.
But the thing about eclectic education is that it is self-paced. So you move at your family's own pace. Each child makes progress on their grade level in their maths and their language. And then some of the subjects you do together. And that keeps you all together. So, for example, in times when I had newborn babies and little toddlers, and I know with you it was the same, we could rely on our read aloud social studies programs as a time where we could just sit and cuddle the baby or the toddler, breastfeed them if we needed to, and read aloud to the other children. And that just kept us together and it made life easier. It didn't feel like you herding cats, which is what homeschooling a bunch of kids can feel like some days,
Yeah.
And then there've been, times when we wanted to take holidays out of season time because it was more affordable. And we could just put our homeschool curriculum aside for 3 weeks, go off on a trip or go and visit grandparents, and then pick it up when it suited us. So that was very convenient. And then there was even a season where for 2 years, I took a full-time job and 3 of my children were still home educating. And it wasn't the same as when I was just homeschooling, but I was working from home, so I could keep an eye on what was going on with them. And I became more of a supervisor than involved in everything that we're doing, But we just had to push through that season, and it wasn't the best in our homeschooling season, but they haven't suffered because of it. They've still kept up with their maths and their languages. And now we're reading aloud together and doing all the things that we love doing. And we were able to still keep homeschooling because we had that flexibility. So, in your season of homeschooling, I mean, there were many seasons.
Yeah.
How did it benefit you? Were there any other ways that you can think of?
Well, so I'm a diehard read aloud mom, So by the time my children went into sort of their more Cambridge school leaving process, I still made sure that we were reading aloud every single day together. And that was a season when it was much more textbook orientated, preparing for tests and exams. And one of my children loved it, the other one endured it for what they needed to do. And that I was able to continue to throw in that read aloud and cover subjects that weren't necessarily part of their Cambridge curriculum. Like my youngest child chose a very science-focused matric, for want of a better word, but I was able to bring in all of the lovely classics and the history and those sorts of things as well. Thinking back to when my children were young, I was obviously much more free in what we did, and we followed a little bit of this and a little bit of that and some rabbit trails here and there. And then there was another season where we kind of tried to stick to a schedule because we wanted to make progress. One of the things that you said in terms of going away out of season was when we are homeschooling in this manner, where all of life becomes learning, even those holidays take on part of their education. We used to go camping every year for 3 years, out of season, so my kids could have the whole campsite and they would ride their bikes and we wouldn't worry about them, being knocked over. And I remember specifically my eldest must have been about 7 at the time, and she found a francolin nest and it had these eggs in it. And I'm not sure how far along they were in their hatching progress, but we were there for those 3 weeks, and she diarized and nature journaled every single day the changes, and she was the first one to see the little chicks that hatch. And I think that when we purchase a boxed curriculum or we use something online only, we'll chat about online in a moment, we tend to think that's education. But when we are using life and reading books and an eclectic mix, we realize that all of life is learning. And I think that she would probably remember that event more than me sitting down and reading a book to her about how eggs hatch, right? So I would just throw that in there. But in terms of online, is there a place in the eclectic home education model for an online portion? So we're going to tiptoe around this because it can become the holy grail for some people. And there are reasons why homeschooling moms use an online program. But we would encourage parents every time not to make it the sole focus. But how would you see online curriculum working if need be?
Well, for the kids that are 12 and under, I would prefer to keep them off screens as much as possible. But, you can always use online sources as a supplement. And we do that even in our footprints programs. And I think as parents, we naturally do it nowadays because we've all got small smartphones. Yeah. We can look up interesting things and, use it. But when it comes to high school and you're starting to release your children to take more responsibility, it might be very convenient to do certain subjects online. And, you're testing them. You're giving them enough rope to hang themselves and see if they're actually going to do their work independently. Yeah. And it frees you up if you need to work part-time or do other things, take care of an elderly parent or whatever challenging season you might be in. There is a place for it. But I think if you're wanting to guard the relationship you have with your kids, there needs to be something that you do together offline as well. Mm-hmm. And for me, a no-brainer would be just using a read aloud curriculum for, some of the subjects. Mm-hmm. So there definitely is a time and a place for it. But like everything online, we have to use caution and restraint.
Sure.
And that's always the challenge for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those pits that you can just fall in, no matter what your age. I was just thinking in terms of if I were to outsource anything online, it would always be maths. I mean, you know, some people delight in it. If I could outsource that, I would say if you want to, you know, for me, let a child do their maths program online. Then obviously, like you're saying, you know, your supplemental digging around and learning and watching a video and that sort of thing. And then obviously kids who have their own interests and their own fascinations, it's an incredible way for them to go and, you know, figure out physics or, you know, knotty problems.
Animation.
Lots
of things like that.
Good
all
one.
The apps and tools are there, you know. I've got a child learning those kind of things at the moment.
Yeah. So I think that in everything there should be balance. We are living in an online age. So let's rather, instead of shying away from it completely after 12 years of age, let's teach our children to manage it wisely. But the whole focus is really that an eclectic model can look whatever you want it to look like. Yours looks slightly different to mine, and ours looks slightly different to other eclectic homeschoolers. And that's the beauty of it. You're catering it for and tailor making something for your own home and family.